Hi everyone, welcome to this presentation on Labrador iron mines. I'm John Carney, I'm the Chairman and Chief Executive of the company, and for the next few minutes I hope to give you an overview and update on our operations and activities in Labrador. First, the usual cautionary statement: things almost never turn out as expected or planned. In fact, they almost never do. So, who is LIM? Who is Labrador Iron Mines? We are an experienced mine developer. Our projects are all in the Labrador Trough, near Shefferville and the Menahik region, in the original location of the Iron Ore Company of Canada's operations, which operated successfully from 1954 till 1982. In the early 2000s, we acquired many of the former properties of the IOC, which they had left behind undeveloped. And over the past 15 years, we have been operating in the Labrador area. 5 years in exploration and development from 2005 to 2010. 3 years in mining and operating from 2011 to 2014, at which time we were the first iron ore producer in Shefferville to recommence mining operations in 30 years. And for the last 5 years, we've been involved in rehabilitation and reclamation from 2015 to 2020. The James mine was our first mine, and we operated this mine successfully for 3 operating seasons, during which we mined 8.2 million tons of waste rock and 4.6 million tons of ore. The processing was all dry crushing and screening. This is direct shipping ore. There was no concentrator, so you basically mine it, crush it, screen it. We wash some of it, and it goes on the train. We operated our own train for 6 kilometers to the main TSH rail line, and over the 3-year period, we railed over 300 trains and almost 4 million tons of iron ore from the mine site at James to the port of Setil, along our own rail line, the TSH rail line, and on the QNSNL rail line to the port of Setil. From the port of Setil, we shipped 23 Cape-size shipments to China, mostly in Cape-size. Here you see one of them, 186,000 tons, all of which were sold into the spot market in China. So, 2014 saw a very steep decline in the iron ore price. It dropped from over $100 down to $60 a ton. We suspended our mining operations in 2014, and in fact, that coincided with the termination of mining at the James mine before we moved on to our other deposits. So, for the past 5 years, we have been very active in rehabilitation activities and in all our environmental compliance. The James mine, one of the issues with the James mine was when we first developed it, we had to dewater the area around, so we installed these major wells and pipelines to pump the streams around the mine and off to downstream. This activity resulted us in blocking the water flow to what was called the unnamed tributary, and we were unable to maintain the water levels in the tributary, which resulted in damage to fish habitat. So we had to compensate for that, which caused us to reconstruct or construct a compensation facility at Redmond Creek for fish habitat. And over the period 2013 to 2016, we reconstructed or constructed the Redmond Creek Habitat Compensation Facility. That was completed in 2015, approved by DFO, and we compensated for the loss of 5,600 square meters of fish habitat. On the mine itself, well, the mine, we had to move on with the reclamation of the mine. Here you see the mine just before we started to flood it in 2014. And as we moved on to rehabilitate the mine, we had to reclaim all of the settling ponds that you see in the bottom right-hand picture here. And the top picture, the main picture, is the site of the reclamation ponds fully reclaimed. The mine itself was flooded, and it completed flooding in 2017. In fact, it overflowed as expected, with the result that the water went back into the tributary, and in fact, the fish habitat, which had been originally lost, was actually reclaimed itself. So now there are, in fact, the original fish habitat is back, and there is the compensation habitat also. We had a large processing site at several yards, all of which had to be rehabilitated. So over the past number of years, we have been decommissioning the several yard site. Unfortunately and sadly, we had to cut it all up and cut up into scrap steel, and here you see the scrap steel being loaded on the train for outward bound back down. And the several yard site is now almost totally commissioned, or recommissioned I should say, and rehabilitated. And in the year 2020 just passed, we completed a topsoil revegetation and reseeding program. So over the past 5 years, we've in fact invested almost $5 million in reclamation and rehabilitation activities at the former operations of the James Mine on several yard site. So where does LIM stand today? We have a portfolio of iron ore deposits. We have about 100 million tons of DSO resource and over 600 million tons of taconite resource. In the same period, we completed a financial reorganization between 2015 and 2016, with the result that we were able to maintain all of our mineral properties, and we still own all of the properties in the area, which are distributed over an area of about 50 kilometers north and south of the town of Shefferville in various deposits. Our focus now is on the development of our Houston project. Houston is the next project that we are planning to develop. Houston today has about 40 million tons of 43101 resource, all in the indicated category, at an average grade of just under 58% iron. When LIM started on Houston back 10 years ago, the resource, as per the IOC work, was only 10 million tons. So LIM's exploration over the past years has resulted in a fourfold increase in the resource to the point where we're now at 40 million tons, and it remains open along strike both north and south. The Houston project is actually a high-grade project, as I mentioned, 58% grade, but is also a hard ore, which should yield a higher percentage of lump ore than the James mine, which was softer. So we're expecting a high percentage of lump, for which you get a premium price from the Houston project. Also, Houston is largely, it's a series of deposits or pits, and it sits on top of a mountain range, and therefore the stripping ratio is expected to be fairly modest. 3 of them are located in Labrador, and the 4th one is located in Quebec, which we call Malcolm. They are about 10 kilometers south of the former James mine and processing site. So the development plan for Houston is relatively speaking a low capital cost compared to most other iron ore projects in the Labrador Trough, and it's a relatively short lead time to production. Our development plan for Houston is fairly straightforward. We're planning on dry crush and screen only. We're not going to wash this ore. We're planning on 10,000 tons per day, which gives us 2 million tons per year of product, and it will give us a 10-year mine life. We plan to operate the mine year-round, and with rail operations only in the summer season. These are based on our experience from mining James, and we have identified what we believe to be the more optimal way to operate in this Shefferville-Menahek area. We need to construct a new rail siding close by to Houston. And stage 1 and 2, the first 2 pits of this mine, are already fully permitted, and the access road is cleared. So where does that leave us today? Well, the iron ore price over the last 2 years, 2019 and 2020, has performed very well. It's persistently exceeded $100 per ton, and often exceeded the expectation of many of the pundits and the analysts. So with the improved iron ore price from what it was 5 years ago, and with a reasonably positive outlook for the future of the iron ore price, we're now trying to move ahead with the development of the Houston project. Of course, we're going to need to raise some financing for this, primarily for working capital. But in order to achieve this and to assist in our negotiations, we have commissioned a new preliminary economic assessment to be completed by RPA, Roscoe Postle and Associates, primarily for use in our financing negotiations. That Roscoe Postle exercise will result in a new updated resource estimate and a new technical report, which we expect to have around the end of this year or early in the first quarter of 2021. In addition to our Houston project, which is our flagship project and hopefully our next mine to go into production, LIM also holds the Elizabeth Taconite project. Elizabeth has a 43101 resource of 620 million tons at a grade of 32% iron, but it also has exploration potential of an additional 600 million tons, both to the northwest and southeast extensions. So we're looking at a total potential of over 1 billion tons of a resource. Now, the advantage of Elizabeth as a taconite project is that it is very close to existing infrastructure, very close to the existing rail bed, and only a few kilometers away from the former James Mine and Silver Yard site. Our conceptual plan for Elizabeth is for a mine that would mine 15 million tons a year to produce 5 million tons a year of concentrate, which will be a high-grade 65% concentrate, which will be able to take advantage of the premium price that is available in the market for high-grade concentrate. It would be direct rail to port and would have a projected 30-year mine life. Now, the challenge with Elizabeth is that it does need hydropower for the concentrator, and of course there's lots of surplus hydropower in Labrador. The challenge is to get it to the Elizabeth site. So the advantages that LIM has for its existing operations is the extensive infrastructure that exists. We've got access roads to all our properties. We have the local town, which has an airport. We have direct rail access to port, and we have a hydropower connection for our existing operations. In addition, we believe we have positive relationships with First Nations. We negotiated and signed 5 IBA agreements with the Innu Nation of Labrador, who were our partner on the mine operations, with the Naskapi Nation, with the Innu Matamakush, with the Innu of Washat, and we signed an economic partnership agreement with the Nuntukavut. We have focused on the social license to operate. We've emphasized local employment, emphasized training programs, emphasized business opportunities and community engagement, and of course, environmental protection. So to sum up, Labrador Iron Mines at a glance, we're an experienced operator. We operated the James Mine from 2010, 2014. We have a proven track record of responsible mining. We completed a reclamation and rehabilitation. We have extensive iron ore resources, both Houston DSO resources and Elizabeth taconite resources and other historical resources. The properties all have access to infrastructure, including direct rail to port. We have strategic relationships with government, with First Nations, and with local communities. And we are advancing Houston towards development. Houston is a low capex development plan with a projected 10-year life, and the preliminary economic assessment, or PEA, is currently underway by Roscoe Postle. We're expecting an update resource estimate and the new technical report to be completed by January 2021. So thank you for listening. If you would like any further information, please visit our website at labradorironmines.ca. Thank you.